Hi, my name is Kenneth Paul, and this is my woodworking shop. It's a genuine pleasure to have you here. We're going to jump right into the project today, and today's project is a downdraft dust collection table. We're going to add a downdraft section to our workbench. Now, stay towards the end after we go through the installation, the building of the downdraft table and installing it in the bench. I'm going to go over what you can do to incorporate it in your bench, if your bench, which more than likely is going to be different than mine. All right, let's jump right into it. All right, this is what my bench looks like now. It's a standard 3/4 inch plywood top bench with 2x framing. What I have laid out on the bench right now are 2 sets of downdraft cable kits from Woodcraft Supply. Each kit comes with 2 of these downdraft pieces and 1 piece that's used to block off a section to keep the downdraft section in a smaller, section. It also comes with a bag of grommets. You can see one of the grommets installed here. That helps keep the wood from sliding around on the surface while you're sanding. It also comes with some little orange stops that you can put in these smaller holes so you can butt whatever you're sanding against so that it doesn't slide around. I'm going to cut a hole in my bench the size of these 4 pieces, and I'm going to frame that opening with 2x, and then I'm going to build a box, a slanted box. The box will be shallow on this end, deeper on this end, so that the dust will naturally flow this way. I'm going to build this 4-inch dust adapter into the bottom of that box, put an elbow on it. The dust will come out, the elbow will come out right here from my dust collector. My dust collector is right here, so I'll be able to just take the 4-inch hose from dust collector and plug it into this elbow, powering up my downdraft table. And again, I'm going to recess that box so that these downdraft table adapters are flush with the table. I'm going to leave it to where these grommets are just about 1/2 above the surface of the table so that I can use them as a non-skid surface. And that way I'll also be able to lay large sheets on my bench without having a lump there. What I'm going to make the box out of, I've got a piece of plywood with mica on it that I cut out when I cut out the sink when I redid my countertops. And I have a strip of 3/4 inch plywood. I will build the angled box out of those. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut the plywood opening and frame it out. So let me get going on. I'm just going to use my skill saw. I'm going to screw a fence down to the bench to make sure I get a good straight cut. I'll show you that when I'm set up. Okay, let's get to it. All right, you can see here I taped out the square I want to cut. By putting tape down, I can see the pencil lines. And I've already cut 3 sides. Now I've got my straight edge down. I'm going to cut the last side using skill saw, obviously. So let's continue here. Alright, that was the last cut. Let's take our straight edge off. Now, we just have to take a handsaw, cut the last little bit that do the four corners, and then I'll show you where we stand. All right, here we have the plywood cut out. Now I'm going to reframe this with 2x4s. I'm going to let the 2x4 stick over 1/4 inch, and I'm going to put a 1¼ by 3/4 inch rabbet in the top of the 2x4s, so the 2x4s will cover the raw edge of the plywood. All right, let me get the 2x started, and we'll get back to this. All right, where we are now is I have started lining the cutout for the downdraft table with 2x4s. And you can see what I've done is I rabbeted the 2x4s to cover the exposed edge of the plywood. This back 2x4 runs from the 2x6 to the next 2x4 support. This 2x4 runs from this 2x4 to the front 2x6. And this one butts up against the 4x4 leg, and it also goes right against the front 2x6. Now we'll put in this last rabbeted 2x4. I'll glue that in place, and then we'll start working on the next pieces. You can see here that I've got the 4x4 here. I'm not going to cut it down. I'm actually going to just cut a notch in the downdraft insert we're going to put in. I don't want to weaken that leg, so I'm just going to cut a little bit of a channel for the downdraft inserts to sit into, and that will be that. All right, let me set up, and we'll get that done. All right, let's get that piece installed. See, I've got the glue on it already. Clamp on there. Clamp here. Okay. Looking good. Doesn't take a lot of pressure. Okay. Need some of that squeeze out. Alright, I made this lip just a tiny bit high. I'll take my block plane after everything's dry. I'll block plane the surface level. But for right now, let's get on with the other pieces. So let's start on the box, and I'll pick back up there. Alright, what we're going to do now is rip the two tapered sides using a taper jig to make the sides for our dust collection box. So let's get that ripped. Dust collection. Eye protection. different size. Alright, let me cut the rest of it. I'll show you when we start assembling. Okay, where we are now, I've taken those two angled pieces that we cut using the taper jig on the table saw. I put a square end on each one, a narrow end and a wider end, so that we now have a sloped bottom. I cut the bottom out of that piece of Formica covered plywood I had. I mean, you don't have, I just happen to have a piece of Formica covered plywood. You can use melamine, you can use MDF. MDF has a nice slick surface, but realistically any piece of plywood you have hanging around or any piece of sheet good will do just fine. You can see in the back here, I've connected my dust collection fitting. When I built the box square. Then after the box was built, before the bottom went in, I added these two pieces, then cut out this section for that 4x4 corner. You can see here we have our mortised in 2x4 supports that come right up to the top, hide the raw edge of the plywood. Alright, now we're ready to install this. Let me set the camera up and we'll get it installed. Alright, what I've done here is I screwed on two supports that are the proper thickness. I want 15/16 is how low I want this to fit the dust collection inserts. And these supports will hold us at that level. Oops, too tight. Hang on. Oops, too much, come on. There we go. There. One inch shy of 16th, 15/16. Very good. Yeah, by putting these couple of little supports on real quick, we're at the right height. It's held there. It makes it easy for us to put our screws in. We'll put a few screws in. No wonder I'm set on drill speed. All right. All right. We'll take our supports out. Okay. Put some more screws in after. Now, these are two sets of the downdraft table inserts available through Woodcraft. I've got them set where the rubber is 1/16 above the surface. The reason I've done that is so I can use the non-slip surface of the rubber grommets when I'm sanding. These orange pieces, they just screw into any of these small holes, and those are stop blocks. so that when you're sanding, you have something to push against. You can put them anywhere you need. Now, each set comes with all the rubber inserts, 4 of the stoppers, and a piece to be able to block out a section. If I'm only sanding small pieces here on the end, what I can do is insert these blockers. Now, the dust collection will only pick up from here. When you don't want them, they just store under the table. Now, I happen to like these Woodcraft inserts. You don't have to use these. I mean, you could cut a piece of plywood and just drill holes in it, put some support battens underneath it out of angle iron or wooden battens to, you know, take some sponge out of it, and then you can put shelf liner. Hang on, let me grab some. This rubberized shelf liner, I use it as a non-skid surface when I'm sanding, but it's all full of holes. So if you had a plywood opening here, if you cut a piece of plywood with the holes in it, you could lay this on top of it, use that as your non-skid surface, and you wouldn't have to buy these. I happen to like the convenience of having these. Now, let me show you another feature before I use this and show you it. There are going to be times when I'm using this bench for urethaning and painting that I'm not going to want these in. What I did was I took the original plywood I cut out, as long as I was mortising pieces of 2x4 to support the opening, I added some pieces of mortise 2x4 to bring this to the same thickness as these. Now I've got my bench surface back. If I'm doing painting or urethaning or staining, I can take these out, drop the bench piece in, and I'm good to go. I think that's well worth doing, is adding this piece back in. All right. Well, let me set up and we'll see how she works. All right, I've got the dust collection turned on. You can't really see it, but there's no dust in the air hook. I got no hose hooked up to this. I've just got the little standard container, and you could really feel the air pulling down. I think this is a worthwhile addition. Now, I have a plywood top bench. Let's say you don't have a plywood top bench. Let's say you have a a narrow hardwood bench that you don't want to cut into. This whole box could be built to slide under your bench and slide out on ball bearing draw glides. So you could slide this away. Like I have the plywood cover to cover it, but if it was under your bench, if my bench was taller, which it should be, you could just put this as a slide out unit, use it, slide it back under the way. Or you could make a separate rolling cart to put this in. And you could make multiple tops for that rolling cart. You could build it the same height as your table saw and use it as an outfeed table. There's a lot of ways you can incorporate the downdraft table. Anything you can do to add more dust collection to your shop is going to be a worthwhile thing to do. All right, I hope you found this helpful. And again, as always, if you enjoy the content, subscribe, like, leave a comment. We'll see what the next project's going to be, but I've been meaning to do this one for a while. I'm glad it's done. All right, thank you much for coming along.